Hi everybody, I'm Jiabao. I'd like to start with this. So this is a picture of a bat, but if you turn them upside down, they become total badass. And this is 3 bats just getting ready for bed, but if you turn them upside down, they're actually just getting ready for party. So what I want to say here is how the world really is depends on how you see them. So throughout this session, I hope you could see the world a bit differently and see bats a bit differently. I create with More Than Humans, and why this is important, because every 9 minutes, one species on this planet disappears forever. This astonishing chart shows there are only 4% wild mammals left on Earth among all mammals. As the Anthropocene rampages, the challenge for the next decade will be try to shift our perception from egocentric, we're on the top of the pyramid, to ecocentric, where we are intertwined and interconnected with other species. And I try to do this through 3 steps. First is to empathize and embody, try to be like other species. And second is to speak up for them, think about what their needs, and maybe it's with manifestos. And the third one is to create with for More Than Humans. And I will give one example of my work about each of them. There are more, but time limit, so one for each. So the first one is to empathize and embody. Maybe we could turn the audio down a bit. Yeah, and this is Nocturnal Fugue. I will perform this tomorrow at Deep Space 8K. Mark your calendar. So here it's inspired by Thomas Nagel's philosophical inquiry. What is it like to be a bat? Can we truly understand the being of another species? So with the help of AI, researchers found that bats have complex language, and just like human baby talk, when we talk to baby, we're like, oh baby, you're so cute. Bat has a similar tone when mom bat talk to baby bat. And they will use to AI to categorize bat calls into like sleeping, mating, food related, or fighting. And so we create the audiovisual experience with this bat calls, and also with echolocation, you can scream and see the environment bouncing back, just like how bat echolocation works. They scream, they echolocate, yeah. And the second one is to speak up for them. What are their needs and manifestos. This is elephant in the room. It's literally put an elephant in the room. So a little bit of backstory of this. In Yunnan, Wild Elephant Valley in China, they claim they rescue the elephant, but after the rescue, they don't send them back to nature, but they cruelly train them to perform for human entertainment. And I work with NGO and lawyers to sue them and use art as a medium to amplify this message, and use the pressure from the public to pressure the government to take actions. So there's only less than 300 wild elephants left in China, and 20 of them are in this wild elephant valley. And a lot of these cruel training are technical patterns. So here in this experience, you can type on the scars of the elephants and learn about what are these patterns and what caused the scars. And enter the AR mode, you can put the elephant in the room. In the saying, elephant in the room means there's a problem. It's so huge and so obvious, but nobody are talking about it. So here we have lots of evidence about this cruelty, but the court has been ignoring it. And whenever there's somebody tap on the scar, we have the sound of elephant cry playing on the court during the court opening day. If you could turn up the sound a bit. So this is the Supreme Court in Yunnan, in China. You can tune down, yeah. And we encourage everybody to share this and put the elephant in their room. And this is people around the world, they put the elephant in their rooms to spread the message. And the third example is, so the third step is co-create with or for them, is squid map. You can see this at the bunker, the bottom of the bunker in the feature section. Squid map is, well, I work with the marine biology lab in Hawaii. While the scientists are studying the squid, I noticed they just sit in these white boring tanks all day long. So I wonder if I could make a playground for them. I collect the white and black sand from Hawaiian Islands and make them into the shape of China and US. And the squid live in there, cross the borders, traverse the country without a visa or passport. And he buries himself under the sand. You will see he will use these cute little tentacles to push the sand on his face as a camouflage. Here. And watching the squid reminds me of myself in many ways as an immigrant moving from China to US, trying to assimilate, to blend in, but sort of find myself in a situation like the squid here, where he has white sand on top, in mid of the black, surrounded by white, but feeling perfectly camouflaged. At the same time, we build borders between countries that can block natural animal migrations. These animals that will not care about the delineation of countries are forced to take a side. After a month, the squid completely reinterprets human maps and borders from the squid's perspective. This map that we have repetitively fought wars for in the eyes of the squid is drawn on their own terms. And lastly, it's Squeaker, the mouse be your running coach. If you have seen a treadmill and a mouse, that's this one. So mouse have been used extensively in scientific research. Every year they get fat or depressed, some glow in the dark, some grow a year, all in the name to understand, for us humans to understand our health better. So what if we switched position to let mouse control our health? I built a smart running wheel. Whenever the mouse runs, I receive a notification for me to run. And if I run and keep running, I run more than the mouse ran, then we both get a reward. So for the mouse, it's a treat or a toy. And then for me, I get to scroll on social media. And the distance that I can scroll is the same distance that I run. So every day I have to run more to earn more scroll time. And it also follows the golden behavior loop. Cue, action, reward can give you, help you achieve good habits. And to my surprise, they run a lot. It's hard. They run 4 to 20 kilometers per day. It's a half marathon. To testify the mouse training on me, I successfully ran the Austin Half Marathon earlier this year. And if you want to join this training, you can download the app on the App Store. There's a real mouse living in Austin in my home, will train you, and you will get a notification whenever he runs. And in the exhibition in the bunker, you are welcome to run on the treadmill. And if collectively you all run more than the mouse that day, we will open the champagne in the evening. Run quicker, Squeaker. And to summarize, I think there are numerous intelligences that beyond human intelligence, creating with more than humans, can help us probe into their intelligence, shift perspectives, and interrogate ourselves. And I founded the Ecocentric Future Lab, and that's what we're trying to do in the lab. Thank you. This is me. If you want to contact me on Instagram, I may have to surpass the mouse in order to reply you. Thank you.
I love that, being trained by a mouse. What an extraordinary idea. And as you're sort of saying, it really flips that hierarchy.
Testing. Yes.
Yeah, great. It really flips that hierarchy of like this idea of humans being in control. But one thing when I sort of tease out was like, in what you just showed us, there was, the superimposition, using technology to superimpose the natural world on the human world. And congratulations on what you did in that court case, amazing work. There was then the using sand to create, the outline of like the human world and the natural world, and allowing the squid to do whatever the squid would wanted to do with that. And then the last one is kind of flipping, so it's the mouse's actions that take the decisions for our own actions. What difficulties do we encounter in like blending the human and natural worlds? Because it does seem that for the moment, we know we can flip the dynamic, we can superimpose the dynamic, but what limitations do we currently face perhaps in art or in technology or politics or economics to truly create a world that does away with that divide between man and nature?
Yeah, I have to admit that so far, most of the creating with more than human species work I've seen, including myself, it's all in a contained environment. Like the squid is in a lab. The elephants are in the wild elephant valley, and a lot of other artists' work I've seen, like it could be in a zoo or insect. It's in a contained, it's in a captive environment, and I haven't seen works that like, how do we co-create with a polar bear? Yeah. How do we co-create with tigers? Something that we truly in the wild, and truly there's a huge hierarchy and dynamics in between. So I think there's a limitation there. And in terms of, like you said about social politics, in terms of like the rights of nature, how do we, when we say rights, how do we have the animals, have the non-human species to vote? Sometimes now it's could be like the speaks people or the people who live together with this species, they can speak the best for them, but we still have that restraint within the human shell. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think that leads us on nicely then to this idea of anthropomorphication. Before we get on to the nice question about the body. How much are we in danger of anthropomorphizing the perspectives of creatures with which we co-create? How much are we limited by our own perspective in order to truly understand, like the octopus that actually has 9 brains, I think it is, which is wild.
Each tentacle can think on its own.
Each tentacle has its own brain. I mean, that's amazing. So how, when we're doing this work, how do we ensure that we are in a kind of like receptive listening mode rather than possibly anthropomorphizing the result?
I think, first of all, anthropomorphize doesn't have to be human-centric. It could be good in a way that's easy for us to connect. Like for the elephants, it's pretty easy to think about, imagine yourself being restrained and be in a prison for the whole life and perform and be like a slave and perform for other entertainment. That's horrible. So in a way, that could help relate. And we have this concept of animal influencers. It's in the age that we have developed a climate fatigue. We have heard so much about the climate disaster. Maybe animal influencer is one of the ways to help us out. Instead of talking about the climate disaster, we talk about how amazing animals are, and we cultivate that curiosity. And because of curiosity, we have more tendency to know about them, to learn about them, and to protect them. And of course, there's big issue, a limitation about anthropomorphize as well. And that's why I think the first step of making this work is to embody. That's like the very beginning. Embody, know their behavior, know them, love them as they really are, what they really are. And embody and be like them. With that, you can really understand their unique intelligence and behavior in order to do something further from there.
I'm so glad you used this word, embody. It's one of my favorite words. I love it. And I love everything that kind of takes the world of thought back into the material realm, because it's from the soil that we all come, and to the soil we will all return. And I think that there's a really interesting movement at the moment, perhaps that we are only just catching up to, certainly in this part of the world. But this idea that, actually the history of Western thought that kind of portrayed mankind as this abstract being, a brain in a meat sack. It's not the only intelligence we have. There's a huge amount of intelligence in our body, and there's a huge amount of intelligence in the body of nature. You and I were discussing earlier, plants don't have a brain, and yet they can think. They have a collective intelligence. And so I'm particularly interested, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this idea that we are using really high tech and also using the technology of questionable companies, I will say so, like Apple, in order to enhance our understanding of the body and then enhance our perspective of other bodies, and how we can use that to create a new multi-layer of sensing, which will then fundamentally impact our relationship to the world, because it's through our body, first of all, that we are in relationship with the world, because it is the brain that needs data from the body in order to then create, our perception of reality. So that was very long-winded, but if you want to jump on, that would be great.
I guess, as I said at the beginning, how the world really is, it's dependent on how we perceive them. And in terms of how we perceive the world now, it's a lot of mediation of technology, or mediation of our inherent bias, how we grow up, and then in terms of how we perceive the world differently with other animals, that's impacted by our womb world, by our unique organs and intelligence, So there's that layer there. And then I think the body part, in my new work, it's a Buto dance with the crickets, about the crickets. And as I practice more of Buto, I think it's an amazing performance way to embody the essence of it. There's various techniques to get us out of the human shell so that other species could live in it. Other species could be animals, could be spirit, could be glacier, could be yokai, so I recommend that to everybody. And a lot of the techniques are it's amazing.
I like this idea of other species living in the body, and I feel like it's almost, how can I say this? It's almost like we have to go through that almost value neutral experiment to perhaps then get to the stage where maybe we could inhabit somebody else in our body or being in somebody else's body. Because it's very easy, I think, to because of the tradition of thought we come from, to dislocate or disconnect the experience. So, for example, the amount of violence that is currently occurring around the world, we can see that on the news, we can read the death tolls, and yet it's not an embodied experience. Maybe because those people don't look like us, maybe because we've never been there, maybe because we can't smell it, we can't hear it, whatever it is. And so I think that it poses a really interesting challenge to, okay, well, if I can try and imagine being a bat, because that seems like good fun, or maybe a bat in my body, because that seems quite funny, it seems that's also kind of creating the environment where eventually we will get to, well, maybe I should try and imagine what it really is to be a refugee. Or maybe I should try and imagine what a climate refugee would feel in my body, and thus begin to expand the perspective of what is it that I am trying to protect and fight for, and who is it that is suffering also from my actions. Exactly. Excellent. I also want to talk a little bit about going back to the technology of this. How is it, do you find that there is a tension between using such high-end, high-spec tech to kind of connect with the natural world? How do you navigate that?
Technology can be used in different ways, right? We talk about AI now, and there's a big initiative called Earth Species Project that's trying to use AI to decipher animal language, try to understand what they're talking about. And I think that's a great project. There are various critiques about it, AR, mixed reality, these can create experience that we could possibly embody other species. And because, of course, it's not fully embodied, but we are trying to be there, try a little bit more. And there are also thoughts about can we train AI based on the intelligence of other species. So far, so much of AI is trained based on what humans have made before. But what if we could train AI that's based on I guess there has been on octopus, and what about others? And then go back to what you said about the how do you know that's plant don't think or forest don't think? That's I have this project where we grow a clitoris from the stem cell from menstruation blood. And we're able to grow a clitoris outside of your body that can sense and think. And so I get a lot of questions from biologists. How do you know the clitoris can think? And I'm saying it's a very human-centered way to think about it, because they say, how do you know it can think when they don't have a brain? But plants may not have a human-like brain, or forests may not like a brain, but how do you know they are not thinking? So in that terms, how do you know this clitoris is not thinking?
Yeah, and I think, we've got enough sort of cultural mythology around, the amazing power of that part of the body to drive certain decisions, and sometimes overpower the brain. That why isn't it actively thinking, or at least taking part in the decision-making process? I want to just mention in the last 2 minutes that we have, because you mentioned training an AI off of an octopus, and that's referencing, I think, the work of Maggie Roberts, who is a British artist. And I just want to encourage everybody actually to think about what Jiabao has just said. At the moment, we are training AI essentially by scraping the internet and getting it to guess the next most likely word and calling that intelligence. Imagine instead if we could figure out a way to train these models on an animal that has 9 brains. So 9 different perspectives, or perhaps better to say 8 different perspectives in each of its testicles feeding into one central brain. Imagine how differently it would approach problems, questions, solutions. And imagine if we could integrate that kind of understanding into our own perspectives, and then perhaps how much easier it would be to begin collaborating with one another, which I think is what is so exciting. It's that what starts as a really intellectual kind of challenge becomes a way of actually creating bridges between people and nature.
Yeah, and I actually last night I just learned that the very first AI that humans have trained is learned from a turquoise.
The tortoise?
The tortoise, yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Did it work slowly?
Yeah. And also in Max Planck, there's a study that also trying to train AI based on cuttlefish. And they have a computer system to look at how they decide to change the color of their skin based on the different pattern. And they are able to know how a cuttlefish think and train AI based on that.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to all the results of that. And good luck with your work. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing. It was great to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.